Hi, I'm Igor Smirnov, and this is the second part of the lesson how to eliminate blunders. Here we'll keep revealing some simple yet very effective techniques that will make you a blunder-free player. If you haven't seen the first part of this lesson yet, I strongly advise that you do it now. You can find a link below this video, and after that you can proceed to the second part. Okay. And before we move on to the next advices, let's quickly recollect what we've been talking about in this lesson. We came to know that a blunder is the main reason for loss in amateur games. Therefore, if you can eliminate blunders from your games, this one change alone can bring a significant positive impact on your play. And in this lesson we're learning the anti-blunder techniques for the whole process of a game, starting from the very beginning until the end. In the first part of this lesson we have analyzed the pre-game preparation, also we analyzed an opening stage, and we came to the middle game stage. As for the middle game stage, we have learned one very important rule, which states that you always should keep track of your opponent's plans. Practically this means that after an opponent's move, before starting to think about your own ideas, first of all, you need to keep track of your opponent's plans. You need to ask yourself a question: what is an idea behind the last opponent's move, and what is he going to do next? That's where we ended the previous lesson, and now let's move forward. Okay, imagine you're playing a game and your opponent just has played his move. So now it's your turn. As we already know, first you need to think about an opponent's last move. And okay, let's say you have done it already, you revealed his plan and took it into account. Now it's time for you to think about your own following move and to detect the best one. After some thinking, you'll find the move which seems to be the best for you. Should you just play it? No, there is an important safety measure here. Before playing your following move on the board, you need to perform an anti-blunder check. This means that before playing your following move on the board, you need to ask yourself which attacking, forcing replies can my opponent play. In most cases, your opponent has only a few eventual attacking replies and you can spot them easily. And only after you check his eventual aggressive replies and made sure that it's not dangerous for you, only then you may move on and play your move on the board. In this position, white played rook to f3. It makes sense. White wants to push away the black's queen and maybe play e4 on the next move. However, white forgot to perform the anti-blunder check. White forgot to ask himself, which forcing attacking replies can my opponent play? Otherwise, he would certainly notice that black can take rook takes d5 using the back rank weakness. The following variation is very simple, and all the following moves are completely forcing. Rook d1, bishop f1 is the only move, rook takes, king goes to g2, and knight takes e3, forking the white's king and queen and getting a decisive material advantage. The white player is in the list of the world's 100 best players, so why did he overlook this simple variation? As we already know, he simply forgot to perform the anti-blunder check. That's why I insistently recommend that you perform it always. Before playing your following move on the board, ask yourself which attacking, forcing replies can my opponent play. It's especially important to perform this anti-blunder check when you're going to play on an opponent's half of the board. That territory is controlled by his army, and therefore you must be especially careful. Now let me tell you one really cool thing. The last two techniques we analyzed together will help you to eliminate 80% of your blunders. This is certainly great. So take it seriously. Even if you don't remember anything else from this lesson, remember just these two rules and this will serve you very well. So first, after an opponent's move, ask yourself what is an idea behind that move and what is he going to do next. After that, think about your move, and once you decided what you're going to play, perform the anti-blunder check. Ask yourself which attacking replies can my opponent play. If you follow this process of thinking, you will eliminate most of your blunders. Okay, let's go to the next advice. Grasp the initiative. Practically, it's a lot easier to attack than to defend. A defender must keep an eye on all of the possible attacking possibilities of his opponent. You need to calculate variations precisely, and your single mistake can be fatal. This is a hard task and it's easy to overlook something. That's why it's not surprising that defenders blunder much more often. This means that you should grasp the initiative. If there is a critical position and you need to choose the right plan, choose the most aggressive one. If there is a branching point and you have several unclear and approximately equal possibilities, again, choose the most initiative one. Don't be too greedy for material, strive for activity. This is a pretty standard position of Queen's Indian defense, and here white can use a typical positional sacrifice d5. After e takes, white will go knight to d4. It favors white's activity, opens a diagonal for the white's bishop, the knight can go to f5 in the future, and all in all it gives white more initiative position. Of course, it's impossible to evaluate all consequences of this sacrifice, but still it makes sense to use this variation. Keep in mind that it's easier to attack than to defend. Keep in mind that if you have an approximately equal choice from several unclear possibilities, you need to select the most aggressive one. This is a proper practical approach. Here's another typical situation, and now black has a choice. He can either take the c4 pawn or not. So what should you do in such situations? If black takes that pawn, he'll get a little material advantage, but at the same time it lets white to build a strong pawn center in the future. It will give white a space advantage and a lasting initiative. I recommend that you avoid such situations for black. Well, please hear me out. I'm not saying that d takes c4 is a bad move. It's good, and for a computer it's probably the best choice. But we're humans, and we dislike defense, and it's hard for us. That's why from the practical standpoint, I recommend that you avoid such situations when you give initiative to your opponent. Of course, there is no rule that you can follow unthinkingly in 100% of situations. Sometimes there may be an exception, and of course you need to evaluate a certain specific position before making a final decision. Nevertheless, in most cases this rule works, and you should grasp the initiative. Let your opponent be a defender and make blunders. The last several advices I gave you were related rather to a middle game stage. At the same time, a majority of oversights happen in a time trouble, so in an endgame or in blitz games. And you need to know how to deal with such situations. So what if you simply don't have enough time for thinking and for applying the previous recommendations we discussed? Then you should follow the next advice. When you're short of time, simplify the position and avoid tactical complications. Exchange pieces, avoid tense positions where a lot of calculations are required. Don't be involved in tactical complications. You simply don't have enough time to calculate all the resulting variations, to evaluate them properly, to perform the anti-blunder check we analyzed earlier. So let me emphasize, simplify the position, even if it's objectively not the most powerful plan. What is the best move for black here? Well, first of all, we can see that black definitely has an advantage. He has 2 extra pawns and more active position, and nearly all the white pieces are hanging. Still, black needs to detect the best move. Obviously, black can grab the rook, and it looks like the most powerful idea. A computer suggests an unbelievable knight d6 move. It makes sense. After c takes and queen takes c2, the queen will be protecting the rook. That's the point. And also knight d6 opens the 4th rank for the queen and covers the f5 square for the moment. So maybe knight d6 objectively is the most powerful solution. Okay, so how do you think? How should black play here? Queen to take c2, knight to d6? Well, let me also mention that at this point black was in time trouble. It's my game, so I know it. And in such situations, when you're tight in time, going into the lines like queen to c2 is wrong, because there you need to calculate a lot of the variations, like queen to f5, white tries to give a perpetual check, so maybe black should go king to h6, white will go bishop c1, and this is a complicated tactical position, and when you're tight in time it's easy to overlook something. A lot of well-played games have ended with an annoying loss because of a sudden oversight in one of such tricky variations. That's why when you're tight in time it would be wrong to go onto the line like this. So let's go back. In the actual game, instead of choosing one of the aggressive possibilities, black played queen to c6. It avoids any tactical complications, it favors exchange, and it makes all the black pieces protected. Now all the black pieces are protecting each other. Here white made the last try. He played queen to f7, trying to take the h5 pawn, and black continued his idea with queen e8, offering either an exchange of the queens or white has to go back. White really did. He played queen to c4, then rook to d4, and now the white's attempt for an activity is over. The white's initiative has gone. Black saved his material advantage, and later on black won the game easily. So this is a correct practical approach. When you're tight in time, choose simple moves, avoid tactical complications, and try to make a position where all your pieces will be protecting each other. So far we've been talking about the process of playing. Let me also give you a hint for your training. Solve tactical puzzles looking at the board from the other side. For example, if it's white's turn in this tactical position, you should flip the board and look at the position from the black side. This is a very effective training technique that develops your habit of thinking about your opponent's plans carefully. This training will help you to discover opponents' threats during your real games. During this lesson I gave you some recommendations of how to think during a game. Of course, it's not enough to be aware of these rules, you need to be able to apply them, you need to have an appropriate skill, a habit of thinking in this way. And before you can get this habit you need to train it. While solving tactical puzzles from the other side, you develop this habit exactly. You develop the habit of thinking about your opponent's plans and ideas carefully. Don't underestimate the power of this advice. This is very good. I've tested it with a lot of my students and it brought great results always. Let's give it a try right now. In this tactical drill, it's black's turn, so we should look at a position from the white side. Now please find a solution. You may pause the video, find the best move, and after that you will resume the video and we'll discuss your solution. Please do it now. Okay, were you able to find the solution? Black should go bishop g1, and white has no sufficient defense against queen g4, where the white's king will be mating. In fact, this is a pretty simple position, it's nearly mating too, but still it's not that easy for us to find the solution when you look at a position from the white side. You see, this is kind of an unnatural task for us. Usually, you find the right moves for you. It's normal for us to detect all the candidate moves for yourself. It's normal for us to try to find the threats and combinations for you. But we don't have a habit of thinking about the opponent's ideas and candidate moves as much carefully. And that's why it's so important to train this skill. If you train it for some time, then you will always be able to find all of the opponent's threats and ideas, and so will be able to prevent them. In this lesson, I have given you 8 powerful anti-blunder techniques. Even if you implement only a few of them, this will improve your results a lot. I strongly recommend that you allot some time to train each technique. Here's what I recommend you to do. Go over these 2 lessons once again quickly. Write down and remember 8 recommendations I gave you. Think exactly how you're going to implement them in your play, and allot some time to train each technique. Then it will really bear positive impact on your practical results, and you'll feel the difference instantly. I'll be glad to know about your results, so feel free to write about your results in the comments below this video, and talk to you in the next lessons. I wish you many nice victories.